I collapsed the moment they called my name at my master's graduation. While doctors begged my parents to come to the hospital, no one showed up. My sister posted a backyard BBQ story. Family fun, no drama. I realized I was just their financial solution. Months later, when they begged me to sign papers to save them from bankruptcy, I looked at them and, for the first time, said no. My name is Cassidy Monroe. I am 29 years old, and I was standing in line, waiting to graduate, when my body finally decided to quit on my behalf. I was at the Lakeview Institute of Behavioral Sciences, a small, respected Chicago college where I had just completed a master's degree in clinical counseling. It was a bright, breezy afternoon. The quad was a sea of white folding chairs, thousands of them, stretching across the manicured lawn. Heavy vinyl banners snapped in the wind, congratulating the class of 2024. The university's brass band was playing a slightly strained, triumphant march. It was a perfect picture, and I was desperately trying to find my place in it. I adjusted the heavy, synthetic fibers of my graduation gown, the air underneath already hot and stifling. My section, for the M names, was slowly inching toward the stage. Around me, graduates were waving, taking selfies, pointing out their families. I saw a girl 2 rows up blow a kiss to someone holding a massive, glittering sign that read, "We're proud of you, Dr. Mom." A few feet away, a young man was trying to balance his mortarboard while hugging his father, who was clutching a bouquet of red roses. My eyes scanned the crowd. Section C, row 10, that's where the tickets were. I searched for my father's tall frame, my mother's distinctive blonde hair, my sister Layla's bored impatience. I saw nothing, just a blur of strangers fanning themselves with programs, smiling and pointing at other graduates, not at me. No flowers, no balloons, no one waiting for Cassidy Monroe. A sharp vibration buzzed against my leg, and my hand dove into the deep pocket of the gown, heart leaping with a painful, stupid hope. Finally, they were here. They had just parked. They were waving from the back. I pulled out the phone, my thumb swiping across the screen. It was a text, from Mom. My stomach clenched. I opened it. "Stuck in traffic. Just awful. Go ahead and walk. We'll be there soon as we can." I read the words twice. Stuck in traffic, on a Saturday morning, coming from Maple Ridge, Ohio, a 5-hour drive they were supposed to have started the night before. The excuse was so thin, so worn. I could see right through it, but it was all I had. Later was better than never. I typed okay and shoved the phone back into my pocket. The disappointment a cold weight in my chest. I would walk. They would get there when they got there. They would still be proud. The line moved. The names droned on. Miller, Mitchell, Montgomery. The dean, a woman with a powerful voice, stepped up to the podium. And now, from the Department of Clinical Counseling, Cassidy Monroe. The world tilted. The scattered applause for my name sounded like it was coming from the end of a long tunnel. This was it. This was the moment I had worked 3 jobs to afford. The moment I had pulled 36-hour shifts at the crisis center for. The moment I had sacrificed every weekend, every holiday, every relationship for, just to prove I was worth something. I stood up. My heart didn't just beat. It slammed against my ribs. A heavy, panicked thud that echoed in my ears. I tried to pull in a breath, but the air felt too thick. The edges of my vision, the bright faces and the green grass, began to fuzz, darkening at the periphery. "It's just nerves," I told myself. "You're just tired. You haven't slept in 2 days." I forced my legs to move. One step into the aisle, another. The applause felt like a wave of heat. I reached the small set of stairs leading to the stage. I gripped the aluminum handrail. It felt cold, slick, or maybe my palm was just soaked in sweat. The ringing in my ears was louder now, a high-pitched whine that drowned out the brass band. The steps in front of me seemed to warp, the flat surfaces tilting. I swallowed, my throat dry as dust. "Come on, Cass, just a few more steps. Smile, shake the hand. Get the diploma. Make them proud, even if they see it later. I let go of the rail. I stepped onto the platform. The heat of the stage lights hit me like a physical blow. The thousands of faces in the crowd blurred into a single, pulsing, terrifying mass. I saw the dean at the podium, his hand outstretched, a practiced smile on his face. I tried to lift my right foot to take the next step. Nothing happened. My legs were gone, not weak, not shaky, simply gone. The connection between my brain and my body had been severed. The ringing in my ears became a single, piercing siren. The spinning lights weren't at the edges anymore. They were all I could see. I felt the air rush out of my lungs as I pitched forward. I didn't even have time to put my hands out to catch myself. The sound was immediate and awful, a collective gasp from the crowd, sharp and sudden, the hollow, definitive thump of my body hitting the wooden stage, amplified by the floor microphones. The electronic screech of feedback from the main speakers as someone near the podium lunged toward me, the clatter of a folding chair being knocked over. Darkness. Sweet, absolute, heavy darkness. The next thing I knew was white, blinding, fluorescent, institutional white, a ceiling tile with a small water stain, the smell of antiseptic and rubbing alcohol, sharp and clean, burning my nose. Cassidy, can you hear me? Cassidy Monroe? A woman in bright blue scrubs was leaning over me, shining a painful, tiny light into my left eye, then my right. I flinched away. Okay, pupils are reactive, heart rate is stabilizing, but she's still tacky. I was on a gurney. I could feel the thin, crinkling paper sheet beneath me. My heavy graduation gown was gone, replaced by a light, rough hospital gown that was open at the back. Ms. Monroe, you collapsed on stage. You're at the emergency department at Chicago Metro. Do you know what happened? My voice was a croak. My tongue felt thick and heavy. I don't know. I was walking. You're severely dehydrated, a man's voice said, deeper, somewhere out of my line of sight. He rattled off questions. Any history of fainting? Seizures? Are you diabetic? What medications are you on? How many hours have you worked this week? I tried to answer. No, I don't. I work at Northbridge, the crisis center. I'm a student. I was graduating. How many hours? 50? 60? I had lost track. The doctor, a tired-looking man with kind eyes, finally came into view. He sighed, looking at a chart in his hand. She's running on fumes. BP was dangerously low. She's suffering from severe exhaustion and a vasovagal syncope. We're giving her fluids. He turned to the nurse. Get her emergency contact on the phone. Now. She shouldn't be alone when she wakes up properly. She needs someone to drive her home and watch her. The nurse nodded, picking up the phone on the wall. Calling primary contact. Parents, in Maple Ridge, Ohio. I watched, feeling strangely detached from my own body. As the nurse held the receiver to her ear, I could hear the faint, repetitive ring. Hi, this is Nurse Evans from Chicago Metro Hospital, she said, her voice bright and professional, speaking to the air. I'm calling for the parents of Cassidy Monroe. Yes, it's regarding an emergency. She is stable, but she was brought in after a collapse. Please call us back at... She recited the number slowly and clearly. She hung up. Voicemail. Try the father's number, the doctor ordered, not looking up from my chart. Try the sister. Keep calling until you get someone. I closed my eyes. The nurse dialed again, ringing, voicemail. She dialed a third number, ringing, voicemail. No one picked up. When I woke up again, the room was quieter. The curtain had been pulled around my bay. The blinding fluorescent light had been dimmed. A plastic bag of saline was dripping steadily into an IV line taped to the back of my right hand. The skin around the needle was cold. My phone. Where was my phone? My belongings were in a clear plastic bag on the rolling bedside table. I fumbled for it, my fingers thick and uncooperative. I finally gripped the phone and pressed the power button. The screen lit up, 12% battery, and a sea of silence. No missed calls, not one, not from Mom, not from Dad, Not from Layla. They hadn't even texted to see if I had made it off the stage. My heart, which they said had been beating too fast, now felt like a stone in my chest. But there was one notification, a bright red one on my social media app. Layla Monroe tagged you in a photo. My thumb moved automatically, a reflex. I clicked the notification. The app opened, the photo loaded, crystal clear. It wasn't Chicago. It was my parents' backyard in Maple Ridge. The lighting was the golden yellow of a late afternoon. The old Weber grill was smoking in the background. And there they were. My father, holding a spatula in one hand and a beer in the other, grinning at the camera. My mother, her arm draped around his shoulder, raising a glass of white wine, and my sister, Layla, in the center, her phone held high for the selfie, making a perfect, practiced kissy face. They looked happy, relaxed, at peace. Then I read the caption. It had been posted 30 minutes ago, right about the time Nurse Evans was leaving her third, increasingly urgent voicemail. Family day without the drama, best decision we've made. I stared at the screen. I stared at the laughing face of my mother. I stared at the smug smile of my sister. I stared at the little blowing kiss emoji. Without the drama. I was the drama, my graduation, my collapse, my student debt, my frantic, desperate climb to be something. That was the drama they had so wisely chosen to avoid. I looked down at the needle taped to my skin, the clear fluid seeping into my vein. I looked at the stark white walls of the hospital bay, and I understood, with a cold, terrifying, and absolute clarity, that their best decision was leaving me to collapse alone while they celebrated my absence, lying in that hospital bed, with the slow, sterile drip of the IV. The image of my family laughing by the grill didn't just make me angry, it unlocked something. It was as if a door in my mind had been opened, and I was suddenly, vividly, back in Maple Ridge. Maple Ridge, Ohio. It's a town of perfectly edged lawns and aggressive neighborly concern, a place where you're judged not by your character, but by the straightness of your Christmas lights. In a town built on appearances, our family was a masterclass, and in our family, everyone had a role. My sister, Layla, 2 years younger, was the little star, the princess. She was born with a spotlight attached, one that my parents seemed to hold and aim for her. She was all feeling, all emotion, all bright colors. I was our rational girl, the responsible one, the one who just gets it. I was the quiet, steady, beige background against which my sister could shine. I was not a person. I was a function. I was the one who understood that my needs came second, and eventually, not at all. I remember being 8 years old. It was a Tuesday. I was tall enough to reach the stove knobs, a fact I was proud of. I slid a small saucepan onto the burner, the metal grating scraping. I opened a can of chicken noodle soup, the pull tab biting into my small finger, and dumped the gelatinous orange blob into the pan. I turned the knob, click, 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 whoosh, and the blue flame appeared. I found the wooden spoon and began to stir, watching the noodles soften. I was making my own dinner. From the living room, I could hear my mother's voice, sharp and focused. And 5, 6, 7, 8, point the toes. Layla, point them. The recital is Friday. You have to want it. I meticulously set one place at the kitchen table, one paper towel as a placemat, one spoon. I ate my soup, scalding my tongue because I was too hungry to wait. My mother was helping Layla practice her ballet routine for the third-grade talent show. I finished, washed my single bowl and spoon, and went to my room to do my homework. My mother never even registered that I had eaten. My birthdays were quiet. They were checkpoints. Oh, Cassidy's 10 already? My goodness. I'd get a small, rectangular cake from the Kroger bakery, picked up by my dad on his way home from work. It usually had the wrong number of candles, salvaged from a kitchen drawer. We'd sing a rushed happy birthday after dinner, my parents' eyes heavy with exhaustion. We'll make it up to you next year, honey, Dad would say, patting my shoulder. Things are just so hectic. Layla's birthdays were productions. For her 9th, our backyard was transformed. There was a bright blue, bouncy castle that took up the entire lawn. A vinyl banner, custom printed, screamed, "Happy Birthday, Layla," in pink bubble letters. Kids from her entire grade, kids from the neighborhood, kids I didn't even know, were running around, high on sugar. My father was manning the grill, laughing, flipping burgers. My mother was coordinating games, her face bright with a kind of joy I never saw directed at me. My role, as always, was the helper. I was in charge of the napkin station. I cut the enormous 3-tiered princess cake. I handed out party favor bags. I was always busy, always useful, and always just outside the frame of the photographs. The dynamic was simple. Layla had feelings. I had responsibilities. Any argument, no matter how small, ended the same way. If we both wanted the remote, my mother would sigh, rubbing her temples before the fight even began. "Cassidy, just let her have it. You know how sensitive she is. Don't make her sad." It didn't matter that I wanted to watch the documentary on ocean life, and she wanted to watch the same cartoon for the 4th time. My desire was an inconvenience. Layla's desire was an urgent, emotional need. The most vivid, cutting memory happened when I was 11. I had spent 3 weeks on a science project, a diorama of the solar system. I had saved my allowance for 2 months to buy the styrofoam balls. I had meticulously painted Mars a rusty red, mixed blue and green for Earth, and spent hours gluing plastic rings to Saturn. It was perfect. It was the best thing I had ever made. I had it on the kitchen table, applying the finishing touches, a sprinkle of glitter for the Milky Way. Layla came running in, chasing our cat. Not looking where she was going, she slammed into the table. My open jar of black poster paint, the one I was using for the vacuum of space, went flying. It arced through the air and landed directly on top of my project. Not just spilled, it drowned it. My perfect, colorful solar system vanished under a thick, spreading puddle of black. I stared. I felt the scream build in my throat, hot and sharp. I had never worked so hard on anything. But before I could make a sound, Layla's face crumpled. She saw what she had done, saw my face, and burst into a storm of tears, hysterical, gasping sobs. My mother ran in, her eyes wide with alarm. She didn't look at the project. She didn't look at me. She went straight to Layla, scooping her up into a hug. "Oh, baby, what's wrong? What happened?" Shh, it's okay." I ruined it," Layla wailed into her shoulder, pointing a shaky finger at the table. My mother finally looked at the mess. Then she looked at me. My hands were clenched, tears burning in my eyes, my entire body shaking with a silent, furious grief. Her expression wasn't angry. It was just tired, disappointed, in me. "Cassidy," she said, her voice flat, "don't make a scene. She feels bad enough already. You're older. It's just a school project. Don't make a scene." Layla was the one crying, but I was the one making the scene. I watched my mother carry my sobbing sister to the couch, stroking her hair, whispering that it was just an accident, that it was okay. I was left alone in the kitchen with my black, ruined universe. I didn't cry. I swallowed it. I swallowed the scream and the tears and the rage until it formed a hard, heavy knot in my stomach. I carefully took the diorama, wrapped it in a trash bag, and put it in the bin outside. I cleaned the paint off the table until the vinyl gleamed. When I was done, my mother came back in. She saw the clean table. She smiled, a small, approving smile. "See? All better," she said. "Thank you for being so mature about it. Cassidy, you're a lifesaver." I learned my lesson. My pain was a burden. My accomplishments were expected. My maturity was my only currency. The stronger I was, the more I could take, the more I was praised. So I became immovable. I became the rock. I became the one who could handle it. At parent-teacher conferences, my teachers would gush, "Cassidy is a model student, so responsible, so bright, a real leader. My parents would smile, a brief, thin smile. "That's our girl, rational." They'd nod, and then, before the teacher could say more, my father would pivot. "That's wonderful to hear. Now, Mrs. Gable, you also have Layla's dance class, right? We just wanted to ask if you think she's ready for the solo in the spring recital. Her pirouette is getting so strong." Even my health was a measure of my responsibility. One winter, Layla developed a slight, dry cough. It was nothing, but my mother insisted she stay home from school for 3 days. She was tucked into the sofa with blankets, a steady stream of hot cocoa and toast delivered to her. My mother sat with her, watching movies, checking her temperature every hour. 2 weeks later, I woke up shivering. My throat felt like I was swallowing glass, and my skin ached. I stumbled into the kitchen, my head pounding. The thermometer under my tongue read 101. I showed my mother. She squinted at the number. 101. Okay. She opened the medicine cabinet and handed me the bottle of Tylenol. "Take 2 of these, honey, and drink some water." I looked at her, confused. "Am I staying home?" She sighed, grabbing her car keys. "I can't, Cassidy. I have to take Layla to that regional drawing competition in Dayton. It's a 2-hour drive, and we have to be there for check-in. Just go back to bed. You'll be fine. You're tough." I took the pills. I went back to my room and crawled under the covers, aching and cold. I spent the day alone, sleeping fitfully, while my mother and father drove my sister across the state to sit in a gymnasium and draw a bowl of fruit. And the better I got at taking care of myself, the easier it was for them to forget I needed taking care of at all. By the time I entered Maple Ridge High, my role as the rational girl had solidified into a full-time, unpaid job, and like any job I had, I decided to be perfect at it. Perfection was my shield. If I was perfect, I was invisible. If I was invisible, I was safe from the chaos Layla created. So I dove in. My schedule was a fortress built of achievements. I joined the debate team, arguing constitutional law at 7 in the morning. I spent my lunches as a library aide, shelving books in the quiet, dusty silence, which I preferred to the noise of the cafeteria. After school, I volunteered at the local nursing home, reading to residents whose families never visited. I told myself it was for the college applications, to build a strong resume for the scholarships I knew I would need. But the truth? I did it to stay out of the house. The house had become Layla's stage. High school gave her a bigger audience and newer, more dramatic props. Her rebellion was celebrated, or at least, indulgently tolerated. She dyed her hair a shocking, chemical pink in our bathroom sink, leaving fuchsia stains on the porcelain that I eventually scrubbed out. My parents just called it expressing herself. She started skipping her morning classes. "Oh, teenagers," my mother would sigh, as if it were a charming universal rite of passage. "She just needs her sleep, I suppose." She started dating boys who were too old, with loud cars and bad attitudes. My father, who could spot a misplaced receipt from 20 feet away, seemed blind to the fact his 16-year-old daughter was leaving the house at 10 at night. They called it her teen phase. My teen phase, by contrast, was a 4.0 GPA. The disparity became a running joke I told only to myself. When Layla's algebra teacher called home, complaining that Layla had lied about a major assignment, my mother just sighed. "Kids these days, they're all like that. So much pressure." Then she turned to me, where I was already sitting at the kitchen table, halfway through my calculus homework. "Cassidy, honey, can you help Layla with her math? She's just so overwhelmed." So helping Layla was added to my list of chores. It meant me sitting there, trying to explain basic equations, while she scrolled through her phone, texting, and complaining that I was making it boring. My time was just another resource to be fed into the bonfire of her personality. But the small things, the academic frustrations, the emotional drain, were just the warm-up. The main event, the moment I truly understood my function in the Monroe family, happened on a rainy Tuesday in October. Layla, who had just gotten her driver's license, was borrowing my father's old beat-up pickup truck to run an errand. That was another new rule. Layla's errands were vague, urgent, and unquestioned. She had been gone for 20 minutes when the doorbell rang. It wasn't Layla, it was our neighbor, Mr. Henderson, a grumpy retiree who lived 3 doors down. He looked furious, and he was holding a piece of plastic, a piece of a car's taillight. "Your girl," he barked at my father, who had answered the door. "Your younger girl. She just backed your truck right into my new Buick, in my own driveway. Then she just drove off." My mother's face went white. My father's went red. "Now, Carl," my father started, his voice attempting a calm he didn't feel. "Are you sure it was Layla?" "Am I sure?" Mr. Henderson sputtered. "She had that pink hair. And here's the proof." He thrust the piece of red plastic forward. "That's off my car. Her truck's got a brand new dent in the bumper, and my bumper is hanging off." The front door opened again, and Layla herself walked in, shaking the rain from her hair, her phone already to her ear. She froze when she saw Mr. Henderson, her eyes wide with panic. The lie was dead before it even started. "You hit my car," Mr. Henderson yelled. Layla burst into tears. It was her default setting, her ultimate defense. "I didn't mean to. It was raining. I panicked." My father quickly ushered Mr. Henderson inside, apologizing, his hand on the man's shoulder. "Carl, please, let's not get excited. We'll handle this. Of course, we'll handle this." Mr. Henderson, slightly calmed by my father's immediate surrender, agreed to let our insurance handle his. He left, mollified, but still grumpy. The moment the door clicked shut, the performance ended. My father's face darkened. "Layla, what were you thinking?" "I was just going to get a smoothie," she wailed. "It was an accident. He's so mean." My mother was already pacing. "Oh, goodness. This is a hit and run, isn't it? That's what he'll say. This will go on her record. Our insurance. Charles, our insurance is going to go through the roof. They'll drop us." I know, my father snapped, running his hands through his hair. "A 16-year-old, a hit and run. This is bad." They argued for a few minutes, their voices rising in panic. They were talking about rates, points on her license, the stigma of it. Layla just sat on the bottom stair, her face buried in her hands, her sobs echoing dramatically through the hallway. And then, in a sudden, awful silence, both my parents turned their heads. Their eyes found me. I was standing in the kitchen doorway, where I had been watching the entire scene. My calculus textbook still under my arm. I hadn't said a word. My father's expression changed. The anger and panic softened, replaced by a look of calculation, a look of sudden, dawning realization. "Cassidy," my mother said, her voice quiet and pleading, "you're here." I just nodded, my stomach turning to ice. "Listen," my father said, walking over to me, putting his hands on my shoulders. It was a rare gesture of affection, and it felt heavy, a trap. "Your sister, she's a mess. You see her. If this goes on her record, it's just going to ruin things for her. She's so fragile." "She's not fragile," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "She's just irresponsible." "Cassidy, please," my mother cut in, joining us, forming a circle around me. "We're not asking you to. We're just thinking, you have a perfect record. You've never even had a detention. You're the rational one." My father picked up, his grip tightening. You're almost 18. You're the responsible one. People trust you. Mr. Henderson trusts you?" The room was silent. I could hear the tick-tock of the hall clock, counting down the seconds as I translated their words. "What are you asking?" I said, though I already knew. "We'll say there was a mix-up," my mother said, speaking quickly. "We'll say you were the one who took the truck, that you were practicing backing out, that you got scared, and you came right home to tell us, which is why we're handling it so fast. It's a fender bender. Cass, my father said. A tap. But with Layla, it looks like a crime. With you, it's just an honest mistake. A kid learning to drive. They were asking me to lie. Not just a small lie to cover for homework, a lie to the police, a lie to our insurance, a lie to our neighbor. I looked over their shoulders. Layla was peeking through her fingers, her sobs having miraculously stopped. She was watching me, waiting. She will owe you, big time, my father said, trying to make it sound like a fun, sisterly pact. You'd be helping the whole family, my mother added, hitting the key phrase. This would hurt all of us. You wouldn't want that, would you? I looked at their desperate, pleading, manipulative faces, and I felt nothing, just the familiar, heavy resignation. It was my job. This was what I did. I cleaned up the messes. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Okay, I said. The relief in the room was so thick I could taste it. My mother hugged me, a tight, rattling hug. Oh, thank you, baby. Thank you. You're a lifesaver. You always are. My father called the Maple Ridge Police non-emergency line. A local officer, someone who knew my father from the hardware store, came by an hour later. I sat at the kitchen table. My parents stood behind me, their hands on my shoulders, projecting an image of supportive parenting. So, Cassidy, the officer said, clipboard in hand, just tell me what happened. I recited the story they had written for me. I was practicing. I hit the gas instead of the brake. I panicked and came home. I was so sorry. My voice was monotone, but my clean record spoke for me. The officer nodded. He probably saw a good kid who made a dumb mistake. He wrote it up, checked my learner's permit, and said that since we were handling the insurance and Mr. Henderson wasn't pressing charges, it would likely just be a warning. He never asked me if I was okay, neither did my parents. After he left, my father clapped me on the back. It was a hard, definitive pat. That's my girl, he said, his voice booming with pride. You're the real support of this family, rock solid. Not like your sister. She's just weak. He went to the living room to watch the game, the crisis averted, his world back in order. Later that night, my phone buzzed, a text from Layla. Thanks, sis. Love, O. That was it. No apology, no acknowledgement of the lie I had just told, of the risk I had just taken, just a casual, dismissive love you, punctuated by an emoji. She was already out with her friends. The entire incident erased from her mind, because I had absorbed it. I sat in my room, staring at my calculus book, but the numbers wouldn't focus. I realized it then. I wasn't a person. I was a sponge. I was a human shield. I was the family's risk insurance, the emotional and logistical dumping ground for every problem. I was the one who took the hit, so the little star could keep shining. This wasn't a family, it was a system, and I was its designated shock absorber. A few weeks later, I was in my guidance counselor's office. Mrs. Petroff was a kind woman with tired eyes who was drowning in the paperwork of 500 high school students. We were doing my mandatory junior year college planning. Cassidy, she said, looking over my transcripts, this is incredible. Perfect grades, debate captain, all this volunteer work. You could go anywhere. She looked at my address. Ohio State? Miami University? I'm looking for a good scholarship, I said, my voice flat. She studied me, peering over her glasses. She was one of the few adults who ever really looked at me. She saw the students who were flying high, and she saw the ones who were quietly breaking. You look tired, Cassidy, she said gently. Not just high school tired, carrying the world tired. My eyes welled. I didn't say anything. I just bit my lip and nodded. You're doing all this work, she said, tapping my file. Is it for you, or is it to get out? The question hit me so hard I almost flinched. I just want to go to a good school, I managed. She nodded slowly. You should apply far away, not just Columbus, far. She turned to her computer, typing something. You're interested in psychology, right? From your volunteer notes? Yes, I said. There's a small school in Chicago, Lakeview. They have an excellent, accelerated program. They're also very generous with scholarships for students with your kind of drive. She printed out a brochure. The cover was a picture of a bright, urban campus, skyscrapers in the background. It looked like another planet. Chicago, I repeated, testing the word. It sounded like freedom. Just think about it, Mrs. Petrov said, handing me the paper. Sometimes, the best thing you can do for your family is show them you can build a life of your own. I took the brochure. I put it inside my calculus book. A secret, hidden promise. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving my family. I was planning my escape. The acceptance letter from Midwest City University arrived on a Tuesday. It wasn't the thick, glossy folder I had dreamed of. It was a standard business envelope, but inside, the letterhead was real, and so were the words. Partial academic scholarship and financial aid package. It wasn't a full ride. It wasn't Lakeview, the school Mrs. Petrov had first mentioned, but it was a real, tangible, 4-year ticket out of Maple Ridge. It was Chicago. I had done it. I brought the letter to the dinner table, my hands shaking slightly. I waited until my father had finished complaining about the price of lumber and my mother had finished detailing Layla's latest social drama. I got in, I said, my voice sounding too loud in the small pause. Got in where? My father asked, not looking up from his plate. Midwest City University, in Chicago. I got a scholarship. The reaction was not celebration, it was immediate, cold silence. My father put his fork down. My mother's face tightened, a look I knew well. It was the look that preceded a problem, and I had just created one. Chicago? My mother said, as if I had suggested moving to the moon. Cassidy, that's 5 hours away. At least, it's a great school. Mom, their psychology program is one of the best in the state. I was already reciting the lines I had practiced. Who is going to help me around here? My mother snapped, her voice rising. Who is going to drive Layla to her dance classes? Her friends can't drive her every day. And what about us? My father chimed in, his brow furrowed. That's a big, expensive city. You'll be all alone. It's not practical. I got a scholarship, I repeated, my voice smaller now. And financial aid. I want to go. I can pay for the rest myself. I've saved up. And you'll be, what, working instead of studying? My mother scoffed. This is ridiculous. Ohio State is a perfectly good school. You can drive home on weekends. I don't want to go to Ohio State, I said. It was the first time I had ever stated a simple personal preference that contradicted theirs. The air crackled. Layla, who had been silent, finally looked up from her phone. So, you're just going to leave? What about my senior year? Who's going to help me with my college applications? You'll be fine, Layla, I said, my patience thinning. This is for me. For you? My father's voice was low. Cassidy, we're a family. We make decisions as a family. I've made this one, I said, standing my ground, my heart hammering. I'm going. The fight lasted for a week. It was a cold war of guilt, sighs, and muttered comments about ungrateful children. But my perfect grades and my scholarship were leverage they couldn't argue against, at least not publicly. They couldn't tell their friends. Yes, Cassidy got a scholarship to a great school, but we're not letting her go because we need her to be our chauffeur. In the end, they reluctantly agreed. My mother drove me to buy a used suitcase from Goodwill. My father gave me $50 and a lecture about carjackings. The day I left, my mother cried at the door. Just don't forget about us, she said, clutching my arm. Don't get so wrapped up in that big city life that you forget. Family is always, always number one. It wasn't a blessing. It was a chain, thrown around my neck. Don't you dare be free. But the moment the bus pulled onto the highway, I felt free. Chicago was a beautiful, overwhelming, anonymous explosion of sound and life. I moved into an old, crumbling dorm building at Midwest City University, sharing a room the size of a closet with a girl who was never there. The paint was peeling, and the communal bathroom always smelled like mildew, but it was mine. I was 19 years old, and for the first time in my life, no one needed me. It was intoxicating. That feeling lasted for about 3 weeks. Then the reality of, I'll pay for it myself set in. The scholarship and aid covered tuition, barely, the dorm, books, food, and the city itself were on me. I fell into a rhythm that would define the next 4 years of my life. My alarm went off at 4:30 in the morning. By 5, I was behind the counter at a small, greasy spoon cafe 2 blocks from campus, my face stinging from the pre-dawn cold. I served burnt coffee and lukewarm bagels to tired commuters, wiping down counters, my mind already on the anatomy lecture I had at 9. At 8:30, I'd run to class. Changing out of my coffee-stained uniform in a bathroom stall, I'd sit in the back of the lecture hall, my stomach growling, trying to focus. After my last class at 3, I'd go to the campus library, but I wasn't there to study. I was there to work. I was the evening shift aide, pushing a squeaking cart through the stacks, reshelving books, checking out materials, until the library closed at 10. I'd walk home, my feet aching, do my reading for class over a bowl of instant ramen, and fall into bed. Then the alarm would go off at 4:30, and I'd do it all over again. My first semester, I was surviving. I was exhausted, but I was proud. I was paying my own bills. I was invisible. Then, one rainy October evening, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Hi, honey." Her voice was unnaturally bright. "How's the big city? Are you eating?" "I'm fine, Mom," I said, balancing the phone on my shoulder, my fingers stiff as I tried to type a paper. "Just busy, lots of midterms." "Oh, that's great." The brightness faded. "Listen, honey, I wouldn't ask, but things are a little tight here. Your father, he lost some of his overtime hours, and the electric bill this month was just astronomical. I don't know how." I stopped typing. I knew this script. We're just short, Cassidy," she said, her voice dropping into a practiced, watery-eyed whisper. "Just until your father's next check. Can you help us out? Just a little?" I looked at my own bank account balance on my laptop screen. It was $240. Rent for my shared apartment next semester was due in 2 weeks. "How much?" I sighed. "Whatever you can spare, honey. Even just 100, 150? It would be a lifesaver." $150. That was my food budget for the next 3 weeks. That was the new textbook I was supposed to buy. "Okay," I said, the word heavy and bitter. I can send 100, but Mom, Oh, thank you, baby." The relief in her voice was instant. "You're a lifesaver. I told your father. Cassidy is the one we can count on. I'll pay you back. I promise." I knew she wouldn't. I clicked the transfer button on my banking app. I ate ramen for the next 3 weeks. I bought a used, older edition of the textbook and spent my library shifts trying to figure out which chapters were missing. I told myself what she had told me. It's just a temporary rough patch. They'll get better. It wasn't temporary. It was a new job title. I was now the remote financial solution. 2 months later, my father called. This time, there was no pretense. "Cass, I need your help," he said, his voice gruff. "The insurance on the truck went up. Something about that incident a while back." He didn't say my incident, the one I had lied for. "And the roof is leaking, right over the kitchen. It's a mess." "Dad, I just sent money." I know. I'm not asking for a handout," he said, annoyed. "I'm asking for a loan. Just for this one thing. You're the only one in this family who knows how to manage money. Just 200 to get the roofer out here. I can't have your mother living with a bucket in the kitchen, can I? You're the one who knows how to manage money." The old familiar praise. the button he knew to push. You're the rational one, the responsible one. I was down to my last $50 before my next paycheck. Okay, I said, my stomach twisting. Okay, Dad, 200. That was the night I overdrafted my account for the first time in my life. The $35 fee felt like a slap in the face. Then came Layla. Layla didn't call. Layla's emergencies were always communicated via a string of frantic, misspelled text messages. Cassidy, you have to help me. My card is locked. I think I maxed it out. I don't know, and I need to pay for my driving school class or I lose the deposit I am. So stressed, I can't deal with this. Can you just send me like $80? Please, sis, I'll love you forever. $80. It was the money I had set aside for my bus pass to get to my jobs. I looked at the text. I looked at the failing grade on the paper I was writing because I was too tired to think straight. I thought about her, sitting at home, so stressed over a driving class, while I was running on 4 hours of sleep and caffeine fumes. I transferred the money. I walked the 2 miles to the cafe in the dark the next morning. And so it went, a one-way river of cash, flowing from my Chicago bank account to Maple Ridge, Ohio. It wasn't just the money, it was the absence of everything else. They never called to ask how my midterms went. They never asked if I was sick. I was. I had a brutal flu for a week and lived on cough drops. They never asked about my jobs, my friends, my life. They only knew my bank balance was something they could draw from. I would hang up the phone after another "just this once" request and feel a cold, hollow emptiness. But I'd push it down. I'd go back to the library stacks, the smell of old paper and floor wax, and I'd tell myself the same story. It's almost over. Just get the degree, graduate. I held on to this one, burning, naive belief that if I could just succeed, really succeed, it would all be worth it. If I walked across that stage, summa cum laude, with a career path and a real salary, they would finally see me. I wasn't just working for a degree, I was working for their pride. I believed that one day, my father would stop asking me for money and start telling his friends, "That's my daughter, Cassidy, the psychologist. She's the one who made it." That hope, that stupid, desperate, childish hope, it was the fuel I was running on. It was the only thing that kept me going when my body and my bank account were screaming at me to stop. And it was driving me straight into the ground. I graduated from Midwest City University with the highest honors, a distinction that felt hollow the moment I cashed my first paycheck. The pride lasted about as long as it took to move out of my undergrad apartment and into a cheaper, darker studio closer to my new job. My degree in psychology had landed me a position as a support staffer at the Northbridge Crisis and Recovery Center. Northbridge was not a gentle, wood-paneled therapist's office. It was a high-volume, fluorescent-lit processing center for human misery, situated in a part of Chicago the tourist buses avoided. I was not a therapist yet. I was the intake. I was the first line of defense. I was the one who sat across from a 17-year-old girl, detoxing in a hard plastic chair, and asked her, "Can you tell me the last time you ate?" I was the one who processed the paperwork for a homeless man whose feet were wrapped in rags, his eyes blank from years on the street. I listened to a mother of 3 who whispered that her husband had accidentally locked her in the basement for 2 days, and I had to type it up as domestic dispute. It was brutal, soul-crushing, heavy work, and it was the first time in my life I had ever felt truly necessary. I was good at it. My supervisors praised my professional detachment. I was calm. I was efficient. I didn't cry. My entire childhood had been a master class in absorbing the pain of others without showing any of my own. I knew how to be the rational girl while the world was on fire. But intake wasn't help, not real help. The only way to move from the clipboard to the counseling room was more education. I saw my path forward, and it led right back to the place Mrs. Petrov had mentioned all those years ago, the Lakeview Institute of Behavioral Sciences. It was one of the best clinical counseling programs in the country. It was also, I learned, shockingly expensive. I applied. Telling no one. I was accepted. This time, I was still foolish enough to call my parents, still chasing that elusive, "We're proud of you." I got my father. "Dad, I have great news. I got accepted into the master's program at Lakeview." The silence on the line was heavy and cold. "A master's?" he finally said, his voice flat, devoid of any warmth. "What in God's name for? You have a job." "To be a licensed clinical counselor. Dad, it's the next step. It's—" "More school?" My mother's voice suddenly cut in, high and stressed. She must have been listening on the other line. "Cassidy, that means more debt. You have a perfectly good full-time job, a state job. Why would you want to mess that up? Why can't you just be happy?" "I'm not quitting," I argued, my stomach tightening into a familiar knot. "I'm going to do both. I'll work full-time at Northbridge and go to school. I can handle it." The subtext was painfully clear. Why are you investing in yourself when you could be investing in your sister? "I'm doing this, Dad," I said, my voice hardening. "I'm taking out the loans. I'm going." "Fine," he said, and I could hear the disgust in his voice. "Fine. Drown yourself in debt. Just don't come calling us when it all falls apart." He hung up. My ambition wasn't a victory. It was a betrayal. I signed the student loan papers that afternoon. The interest rate was a predatory 6.8%. I didn't care. I enrolled. And my life, which had previously been just exhausting, descended into a gray, humming, 24-hour cycle of hell. I became a ghost, haunting the city's transit system. My schedule was a mathematical impossibility. My alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. By 6:30, I was in my first class at Lakeview, development and psychopathology, my head buzzing from lack of sleep. At 9, I would leave campus and take the L train. Red line to blue line, transferring at Jackson. I would do my required reading for my next class while standing, strap hanging, in a crowded car that smelled like wet wool and exhaust. At 10:30, I would arrive at Northbridge for my shift. It started at 11 and officially ended at 7. 10 hours of intake, de-escalation, processing insurance, and listening to stories that scraped grooves into my brain. But the full-time job and the massive student loans still weren't enough. There were books, fees, and, of course, the steady one-way drip of money back to Maple Ridge. So I took on more, 3 nights a week. I also took the overnight shift on the Northbridge Crisis Hotline. My life became a blur. From 7 p.m. until 9, I would eat a cup of instant noodles in the bleak break room, my textbook propped open against the salt shaker. At 9 p.m., I would clock back in, go to the small, soundproofed hotline room in the basement, and put on a headset. From 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., I would talk to the desperate, the lonely, the suicidal. I would sit in the dark, my voice a calm, steady monotone, talking a man off a bridge, counseling a woman who had relapsed, listening to a teenager who just needed to hear a human voice. At 6 a.m., my hotline shift would end. I would go to the staff bathroom, splash stinging cold water on my face, change my shirt, and take the L train back to Lakeview for my 6:30 a.m. class. Sleep was not a schedule. It was a luxury I snatched in 20-minute increments. I slept on the train, my head vibrating against the cold window, my bag clutched in my lap. I slept in the hospital waiting room for half an hour before my intake shift. I slept with my head on a library desk, the fluorescent lights burning through my eyelids. My body, the one I had always counted on, the one that was tough and rational, began to mutiny. It started with my hands. I would be in my trauma and recovery seminar, trying to write a note, and my hand would begin to shake. A fine, uncontrollable tremor. I'd grip the pen tighter, jamming my fist into the table to make it stop, hoping no one saw. Then came the heart palpitations. I'd be sitting at the hotline desk, in the 3 a.m. quiet, and my heart would suddenly kick in my chest, a violent, flapping sensation, like a trapped bird. It would be followed by a terrifying, rapid thump, 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 thump that took my breath away. I would press my hand to my chest, my blood running cold. This is it. I'm having a heart attack at 28. But then it would slow, leaving me dizzy and sweating. It's just the coffee, I told myself. Too much break room coffee, not enough sleep. I started getting dizzy spells. I'd stand up from my desk, and the entire room would tilt and go black at the edges. I'd have to grab the wall, breathing slowly, my vision sparkling, until the world righted itself. Low blood sugar. I'd rationalize. I forgot to eat lunch. Again. The irony was that I was sitting in classes, literally studying my own symptoms. In my advanced psychopathology lecture, my professor, Dr. Hale, a sharp, empathetic man who had seen too much, was discussing vicarious trauma and burnout. He paused, looking over the room of aspiring therapists, all of us pale and running on caffeine and savior complexes. "I want you all to listen to me," he said, his voice quiet but penetrating. "You are in the business of pouring from your own cup to fill others, but you cannot pour from an empty cup. Giving until you collapse is not sacrifice." He paused, letting the words land. "It is self-abandonment, and in the end, it helps no one." Self-abandonment. The phrase hit me like a physical blow. It was as if he had peeled back my skin and exposed every nerve. He was right. I was empty. I was a husk. I wasn't saving anyone. I was disappearing. I walked out of that class with a strange, cold resolve. I was going to fix this. I was going to use the last bit of my student loan disbursement, the small emergency fund I had guarded, and I was going to see a doctor. I was going to get a full physical. I was going to get blood work. I was going to sleep for one whole day. That night, I was at my desk at Northbridge. It was my off night, meaning I was only working my regular 10-hour shift. I had the campus clinic website open, my finger hovering over the schedule appointment button. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. "Cassidy, call me immediately. It's an emergency." My heart did its new, awful lurch-kick race routine. I stepped into the empty hallway, my hand already shaking, and dialed. "What's wrong?" "It's the truck," she burst out, already crying. "Your father's truck. The only car we have that runs. We missed a payment. Cass, I guess we missed two. I lost track. They're going to repossess it. They said they're coming for it tomorrow." I closed my eyes. What about Dad's paycheck? He just got paid. It's gone," she stammered. Layla needed help with the deposit for her yoga certification. We thought we could catch up, but the late fees just... Cassidy, please, I'm begging you. They want $500, right now, or they are taking the truck. Your father will lose his job. He can't get to the construction site without it. This will ruin us. Please. $500. It was the exact amount I had set aside. The money for the doctor, the money for my health. I looked at the clinic website, the glowing confirm button. I heard Dr. Hale's voice. Self-abandonment. "Mom," I started, my voice weak, unstable. I can't. Not this time. I need that money. I'm not. Well, I need to see a doctor." The sobbing stopped instantly. Her voice went arctic. "You're not well?" she scoffed, the indignation sharp as glass. "What does that mean? You have a cold? Cassidy, I am talking about our livelihood. I am talking about your father's job. We are about to lose the only car we have, and you're worried about a sniffle? I cannot believe how selfish you have become since you moved to that city." Selfish. The kill shot. The word she saved for when she knew I was resisting. The one that always worked. I leaned my forehead against the cool cinder-block wall of the hallway. The dizziness was washing over me again, just from standing. "Okay," I whispered. The fight just evaporated. I was too tired. "Okay, Mom, I'll send it. But please, you have to be more careful." "Oh, thank you, baby. Thank you. You're a lifesaver. I knew you'd understand. A real lifesaver." I hung up. I didn't go back to the clinic website. I opened my banking app. I transferred the $500 I didn't have, from my student loan, to their account. I never rescheduled the appointment. The last few months leading up to graduation were a blur. The symptoms got worse. The hand tremors were constant. The dizzy spells became short. Terrifying blackouts. I'd be walking to the train and suddenly find myself clutching a railing, having lost 2 or 3 seconds of time. My memory, once my sharpest tool, began to fray. I'd forget a client's name in the middle of an intake. I'd forget if I had eaten that day. And then, the chest pains started. Not just the fluttering, but sharp, stabbing pains that shot up into my jaw. I'd be on the hotline at 3 a.m, counseling a suicidal man, all while rubbing my own sternum, convinced my heart was finally tearing itself apart. I told myself it was just the stress, the final push, just get to graduation. I finished my thesis. I passed my final exam. I bought my cap and gown. I emailed my parents the details for the ceremony, my heart still holding on to that one. Pathetic, flickering hope. My body was a siren, screaming at me, warning me of imminent system failure. It was sending every signal it had. But no one in my entire life had ever listened to me, so I had no idea how to listen to myself. I just pushed through, a ghost in a graduation gown, propelled only by the desperate, dying wish that when they saw me walk across that stage, it would all, finally, have been worth it. The final week before graduation wasn't a victory lap. It was a sprint through mud, with weights chained to my ankles, my final thesis, a dense, 80-page paper on crisis intervention for non-documented populations, was due in 48 hours. At Northbridge, a colleague called in sick with the flu, which meant I was pulling 2 back-to-back 16-hour shifts to cover the intake desk. My phone was a constant, shrill interruption, a duet of opposing realities. On one hand, there was my family. For the first time in my entire academic career, they were excited. "Cassidy!" My mother's voice was genuinely bright when she called. "We're all set. Your father is getting the oil changed in the truck. We're going to drive up Friday night, stay over, and be there bright and early Saturday. I'm bringing my good camera. I'm going to live stream the whole thing for your aunts." My father even got on the line. "Make sure you get us good seats. Cass, I want to be right up front when they call your name. Cassidy Monroe, master of whatever it is." Sounds good, doesn't it? It did. It sounded like everything I had ever wanted. The validation was so close, so tangible. I could almost taste it. It was like a drug, making me ignore the tremors in my hands, the spots in my vision. Then, Layla texted. Her excitement was, as always, a backhanded slap. "Hey, so excited for this weekend. Mom's forcing me to wear a dress. Ugh. BTV, please try not to cry on stage or anything. I hate when people get all dramatic at these things. Just smile and take the paper. It's not a big deal." It's not a big deal. The other reality was buzzing in my email inbox. It was an automated alert from my bank. Low balance notification. Your checking account balance is below $50. I stared at it. $50? After my last loan disbursement, after my last paycheck, after a decade of nonstop work, I had $50 to my name. The steady drain to Maple Ridge, the roof repair, the overdue electric bill, the yoga certification deposit had taken everything. I had my graduation gown, but I wasn't sure I had enough for bus fare to the ceremony. It doesn't matter, I told myself. Deleting the email, after Saturday, everything changes. I get my license, I get a real salary, I'll rebuild. This is the last hurdle. The last hurdle wasn't my thesis. It arrived 3 days before graduation. My phone rang. It was Layla, and she was crying. Not her fake, manipulative sobs, but the real, terrified, gasping for air panic that I hadn't heard since she was a child. "Cassidy! Cassidy! You have to help me! They're going to sue me! They're going to ruin my life!" My blood went cold. The exhaustion vanished, replaced by a jolt of pure adrenaline. "Layla, slow down. What are you talking about? Who is suing you?" The car dealership," she wailed. "You know that? That new car I got? The little white one? I vaguely remembered a picture she had posted. The one you leased? What about it? I missed the first payment. I thought Mom was paying it. And I don't know. Cass, they called, and they said I lied on my application. What do you mean, you lied? I told them I worked part-time at Dad's friend's hardware store, but I only worked there for, 2 weeks. And they called him. And I used my savings for the deposit. And now I don't have anything for the first payment. And they said because I falsified my income, the whole lease is void, and I have to pay. Or they're going to repossess it, right out of the driveway, in front of everyone. Her voice escalated into a full-blown scream. Cassidy, I'll be humiliated. I can't live here if they do that. Everyone will know. You have to help me. My head was spinning. Layla, I don't have any money. I have $50. It's not about money. Well, it is, but Mom, she shrieked, away from the phone. Talk to her. She won't listen. My mother's voice came on the line, sharp and frantic. Cassidy, did she tell you? This is a legal emergency. They're talking about fraud. Fraud? Cassidy. Mom, she's the one who lied on the application. That's serious. Don't you take that tone with us, my father's voice boomed. He was on the line too, a full-court press. This isn't about what she did. It's about fixing it. The man from the bank. He said there's one option. Since she can't pay the lump sum, which is like thousands of dollars, they need a co-signer, a real one with good credit. I stopped breathing. Cassidy, my mother said, her voice dropping into that pleading, manipulative whisper. You're the only one in this whole family with good credit. You're the only one who understands this legal stuff. You have that degree. You're basically a professional. They need a co-signer, my father repeated. Or they need the minimum default payment right now. To show good faith. It's $450. Cass. I don't have $450. Dad, I yelled, my hand shaking so hard I had to grip the phone with both hands. I told you, I have nothing. What about your emergency fund? My mother asked. The one you always keep? The one from your student loans? I had one last reserve, a separate savings account. It was the money I had set aside to pay for the licensing exam after graduation, the money for my actual professional future. It had exactly $500 in it. It was the only safety net I had in the world. Mom, no, I said, my voice breaking. That's for my license. I can't touch that. I need that to get a job. A job, my mother shrieked, the panic making her cruel. You're worried about a job when your sister is about to be arrested? When her car is about to be towed in front of the whole neighborhood? What is wrong with you? Is that what that school taught you? To be selfish? To abandon your family? If you don't help, this ruins her, my father shouted. This ruins us. We can't handle a lawsuit. Do you want us to lose the house over a car? Because that's where this is headed. They hammered me, one after the other. Selfish, ungrateful, abandoning us, ruining her future, humiliation, lawsuit, losing the house. I was at my desk at Northbridge. I was on hour 14 of my shift. I hadn't eaten in 10 hours. The room was spinning. I looked at my bank account on the screen. $500. My future. I looked at the phone. My family. My past. Okay, I whispered. The word felt like it was ripped from my throat. Stop. Just stop yelling. I'll send it. Silence. The sweet, instant relief on their end. Oh, baby, my mother breathed, already starting to cry with gratitude. Oh, Cassidy, thank you. You are a lifesaver, a real, true lifesaver. We knew you'd come through. We knew you were the one we could count on. Send it now. Cass, my father said. All business. I'll give you the account number for the finance company. I kept the phone to my ear. I opened the banking app. I typed in the long, unfamiliar account number. I typed in the amount, $450. I hit confirm. I watched my safety net, my entire future, my licensing exam, my hope, vanish, sent to a faceless collections agency for a car I had never seen, for a lie I had not told. "It's done," I said, my voice dead. "We'll see you Saturday," my mother chirped, her voice completely back to normal, as if she had just asked me for a cookie recipe. "I can't wait. We're so proud of you. Honey, so proud. Bye-bye." She hung up. I sat there, in the buzzing fluorescent silence of the crisis center. My bank account now read $50. My savings account read $50. I was graduating in 3 days with a master's degree and $100 to my name. I didn't cry. I had passed the point of tears. I felt a strange, cold, terrifying emptiness. I finished my shift. The night before the ceremony was a blur. I handed in my thesis. I don't remember doing it. I went to my tiny studio apartment. I took the black cap and gown out of its plastic wrapper. I hung it on my closet door. I plugged in the cheap iron I'd had since freshman year. I started to iron the sleeve of the gown, and my hand was shaking so violently I couldn't hold the iron straight. It was vibrating. A low-level seizure. A physical manifestation of the rage and exhaustion I had swallowed. I had to put the iron down on its heel, my breath catching in my chest. I gripped my right wrist with my left hand, trying to physically still the tremors, but they were too deep. I gave up on the ironing. A wrinkled gown was the least of my problems. I caught my reflection in the cheap full-length mirror on the back of the door. I stopped. The person looking back at me was a stranger. Her face was gaunt, a sickly, pale gray. Her eyes were sunken, underscored by dark, bruised-looking circles that no amount of concealer could hide. Her cheekbones jutted out. I looked haunted. I looked like one of the clients who stumbled into Northbridge, not the counselor who was supposed to be helping them. "It's just one more day," I whispered to the reflection. "Just get through tomorrow. Just walk." I forced myself to believe it. This is the before. Tomorrow is the after. Tomorrow. They would see me. They would be proud. Their pride would make it all make sense. Their pride would be the payment. It had to be. The next morning, the day of graduation, my alarm went off at 7. I hadn't slept. I showered, the hot water making me so dizzy I had to lean against the tile wall. I put on my dress. I put on the wrinkled gown. I put on the cap. I walked to the bus stop. The air was bright and festive. The sun was shining. I should have been happy. I felt nothing. I felt disconnected, like I was watching myself from a great distance. I climbed the steps of the bus. I gripped the pole, and a wave of blackness hit me. Whoa. My knees buckled slightly. I grabbed the handrail, my knuckles white. "I'm just nervous," I told myself, my heart doing its sick, flapping dance. "I'm just excited, and I haven't eaten. It's just nerves." I found a seat. I watched the city go by, the world blurry outside the window. I felt like I was moving underwater. I got to the campus. I found my spot in the lineup, in the M section. I saw the white chairs, the banners, the families. I scanned the crowd for Section C, row 10. Empty. But that was fine. I had the text. Stuck in traffic. They were on their way. They were coming. All I had to do was walk. So I stood in line, my hands shaking again, my body humming with a strange, electric dread. I stood there, waiting for my name, propelled by that one last, desperate, flickering hope. I was a ghost, waiting for my family's applause to finally make me real, and I was walking, step by step, toward the moment my entire system would finally, spectacularly, shut down. The emergency room was a blur of noise and transient panic. My bay was a temporary stop, after the blood work came back, and after my heart did its chaotic, flapping dance on the EKG monitor. The mood changed. The tired ER doctor's face became serious. "This isn't just exhaustion, Ms. Monroe," he said, reading the printout from the machine. You're having a significant arrhythmic episode. We're admitting you to the cardiology observation unit. Cardiology, the word was heavy. It was a word for old men who ate too much steak, not for a 29-year-old on her graduation day. I was moved to a different floor, to a quieter room with a door that closed. The light was softer. A new nurse, this one with a gentler demeanor, hooked my IV up to a pole that beeped with a steady, metronomic rhythm. I was attached to a machine that monitored my heart, the sticky pads on my chest a constant, itching reminder of my body's betrayal. A cardiologist, a woman with a brisk, no-nonsense manner, came in a few hours later. She had my chart, my blood panels, my EKG strips. "Well, Cassidy," she said, not unkindly, "you did a real number on yourself. You're suffering from a cardiac arrhythmia brought on by what appears to be, well, everything." She ticked the points off on her fingers. Severe, chronic stress, prolonged sleep deprivation, and I don't mean a few all-nighters. I mean months, possibly years of it, malnutrition, and dehydration. Your body wasn't just low on fuel. It was running on an empty tank and cannibalizing the engine. She looked at me over her glasses. "You're a counselor, or you're about to be. You know what chronic stress does to the adrenal system. Yours is completely shot. Your heart is just spazzing out. It doesn't know what to do anymore." She then asked the question that finally broke me. It wasn't about my health. It was simpler. "We can likely stabilize you and discharge you tomorrow or the next day, provided you have a strict follow-up plan." She clicked her pen. "So, who is coming to pick you up? Who will be staying with you for the next 48 hours? I stared at her, my father, with his truck, 5 hours away, my mother, with her wine glass, my sister, with her no-drama caption. I had no name to give her. The silence stretched. I looked away from her, at the beige, water-stained wall tile, and felt a single, hot tear slide from the corner of my eye into my hairline. I didn't sob. It was just a quiet leak. I don't, I whispered, my voice rough. "There's no one. I live alone." The doctor's expression softened from clinical to human. She sighed, a deep, frustrated sound. "Right," she made a note. "I'm going to have Dr. Hale come speak with you. He's the head of our behavioral health unit here, and he's also faculty at Lakeview. I believe you two may know each other." My heart, the traitor, gave a painful lurch. Dr. Hale, the man whose voice was in my head, the one who had warned me about self-abandonment. He came in an hour later, not in his professor's tweed jacket, but in a white coat. He looked older here, more tired, but his eyes were just as sharp. "Cassidy," he said, pulling up a stool. He didn't offer platitudes. "This is a hell of a way to finish a thesis." "Hi, Dr. Hale?" I whispered. "The cardiologist says you're physically fine, in that nothing is permanently broken, but you're running on empty, and she says you told her. There's no one to pick you up." I just nodded, the shame thick in my throat. He leaned forward slightly, his voice quiet, professional, but deeply kind. It was the voice I was trained to use with my clients at Northbridge. "You and we're in the same business. Cassidy, we sit in rooms all day with people at their breaking point. We see the patterns. We see the helper role. We see the one who carries the load for the whole family." He looked at my chart. "And I'm guessing that person is you." I don't know why, but his professional assessment, the clinical labeling of my life, was what undid me. I began to cry. Not the one polite tear, but a silent, racking series of sobs, my shoulders shaking against the thin hospital sheets. I work so hard." I managed to get out, the words thick. I just wanted them to be proud. I just wanted them to show up." "And they didn't," he said. It wasn't a question. "They were your emergency contact. We called them, the ER staff, multiple times. They declined the calls, or ignored them." He let that sit in the air. He let the truth of it, the undeniable, ugly fact of it, land on me, ignored. "You're a classic case, Cassidy," he said, not cruelly, but as a statement of fact. The overachieving child from a dysfunctional system, the rational one who gets assigned all the responsibility and none of the care. You've been paying, in every sense of the word, for their approval. And what happens when the designated helper finally collapses? The system that relies on them just gets angry, or, in this case, goes to a barbecue. He was holding a mirror up, and I finally hated what I saw. "What do I do?" I whispered. "For now, you rest," he said. "You drink the fluids, you eat the jello, and you start making a plan for a life that doesn't include being a human sacrifice." He was about to say more when there was a soft knock on the door. It wasn't a nurse. A young woman poked her head in. Maya. She was in my thesis cohort, a smart, funny woman with kind eyes who I'd often studied with in the library. She was one of the people who had seen me shaking, who had noticed I never ate. "Oh my God, Cass," she whispered. Rushing in, she was holding a worn canvas tote bag. I was at the graduation. Everyone saw. I called your phone, and it went to voicemail. So I started calling hospitals. Are you okay?" I just looked at her, overwhelmed. "That was a stupid question," she said, her face crumbling with empathy. "Here," she started pulling things from her bag. "I brought you, I don't know, stuff. My good phone charger, a clean t-shirt. It's mine, but it's clean. A toothbrush, and a bottle of Gatorade, the good kind. And this." She pulled out a small, lopsided cupcake with graduation cap sprinkles on it. I bought this at the reception, for you." I looked at the cupcake, and I laughed. It was a raw, broken, wet sound. This friend, this colleague, this practical stranger, had done what my family of 29 years had not. She had shown up. She had brought me a cupcake. Dr. Hale watched this, a small, knowing smile on his face. "It seems," he said, standing up, "that you do have someone to pick you up after all." He turned to me. "I'll be back to sign your discharge papers tomorrow, on one condition. You do not go home alone. You go home with Maya." Maya nodded, her expression fierce. 100%. She's coming to my place. My couch is terrible, but my fridge is full." "Good," Dr. Mel said. He handed me a clipboard with a simple, one-page form. "One last thing. This is your admissions file. Your emergency contact is still listed as your mother. I highly recommend you change that." I looked at the form. Line 5. Primary emergency contact. The name Barbara Monroe was typed there. I looked at Maya. "Is it okay?" I asked, my voice small. "Is it okay?" Maya's eyes were wide. "Cass, it would be an honor. Put me down. Put my mom down, too. She makes amazing soup." I took the pen from the clipboard. My hand was still shaking, but I didn't care. I gripped it hard, crossed out my mother's name, and wrote Maya Patel and her phone number. I signed the bottom, Cassidy Monroe. It was a small, bureaucratic act, but it felt like a revolution. It was the first, definitive click of a lock turning. I was severing the primary tie. They were no longer the people the world would call when I was dying. They had forfeited that right. That night, Maya dozed in the uncomfortable visitor's chair. The only light in the room was the steady green glow of the heart monitor and the bright white screen of my laptop. I had asked her to get it from my bag. She had. My phone was still silent. No calls. No, "Oh my God, are you okay?" texts. Just the picture of the barbecue, still mocking me from my social media feed. I was done waiting. I opened my online banking app. My balance was, as I remembered, $100.16. I clicked on Transaction History. I scrolled and scrolled. It was a bloodletting, documented in cold, hard numbers. Transfer to B. Monroe, $150. Note, help. Transfer to C. Monroe, $200. Note, Homage transfer to L. Monroe, $80. Note, Z transfer to collections agency, $450. Note, our emergency. On and on it went. Years of it. Thousands and thousands of dollars. My scholarships, my paycheck, my crisis hotline money, my student loans, all siphoned, one emergency at a time, to Maple Ridge. The clarity Dr. Hale talked about, it was here. It was cold and sharp, and it was settling in my bones. It was pure, distilled anger, not the hot, screaming kind, the quiet, methodical, constructive kind. My fingers moved on the trackpad. First, I went to the recurring transfers page. There was one I had forgotten, an automatic, $50 a month transfer to my mother's checking account, set up years ago for groceries. I clicked cancel. A box popped up. Are you sure? Yes. Next, I went to my account settings, security, shared access. My mother had asked for this years ago. Just to help me keep an eye on your balance, she'd said. I saw her name. Barbara Monroe. View only. I clicked revoke access. Are you sure? Yes. I changed my password. Something long, complex, and unguessable. Then I logged into my cell phone account. I had been on a family plan since high school. Something I'd never thought to change. I just sent my father $80 every month for my share. I looked at the details. The plan was for 4 lines. The entire plan was under my name, my credit, my social security number. I had set it up when I turned 18, because my credit was better than theirs even then. I was paying for my phone, and my mother's, and my father's, and Layla's. I did the same for the internet at their house. It was bundled, still in my name, still tied to my credit. I felt sick. The anger was so cold it made my hands steady. I pulled out my phone. I didn't call them. I called the phone company. I sat in the dark, my voice a polite, firm whisper, and spent 45 minutes navigating an automated menu to get to a human. I explained that I was moving, that I was canceling my plan. I transferred ownership of their 3 numbers to a new account, which would be in my father's name. It would be his credit check, his responsibility. I paid the early termination fee for my own line and set up a new, individual account, under my name only, with a new number. I did the same for the internet service in Maple Ridge. Yes, I am sure I want to cancel. No, I do not want to transfer. Yes, I will pay the disconnection fee. I was cutting the cords, not just the emotional ones, the financial ones, the digital ones, the ones that had me tethered to a house I hadn't lived in for a decade. When I was done, I opened a new tab. I Googled Personal Finance Lawyer Chicago. I found a name with good reviews, Blake Foster. His website had a book online consultation button. I clicked it. I filled out the form. Reason for consultation: potential fraudulent use of credit and identity by family members. I scheduled an appointment for the following Monday. It was 3 a.m. Maya was snoring softly in the chair. My heart monitor beeped its steady, reassuring rhythm. I looked at the IV taped to my hand, the bag of saline slowly dripping life back into me. I thought, I have let them do this to me. I have let them stick a needle in my vein and drain me, one emergency at a time, for my entire adult life. It was an IV, in reverse. The anger was gone. In its place was something harder: resolve. I shut the laptop. I made a promise to the pale, sick-looking woman I was. No more. Not one more dollar. Not one more lie. This wasn't an act of revenge. It was an act of survival. I was discharged from the hospital 36 hours after I collapsed, not to my empty studio, but to Maya's cramped, third-floor walk-up. It was a haven of mismatched furniture, thriving plants, and the overwhelming, glorious smell of her mother's lentil soup. "You have one job," Maya ordered, piling blankets on me as I sat on her lumpy, comfortable couch. "You will sit, you will eat, and you will not, under any circumstances, check your work email." I agreed. I hadn't told her about the other things I had done: the canceled phones, The revoked bank access, the new lawyer. I just sat, wrapped in an afghan, my new, unregistered prepaid phone silent on the coffee table. But the silence I had manufactured was only on my new device. The storm was breaking on my laptop. I had forgotten. My old phone number, the one I had terminated, was still linked to my iMessage account on my laptop. The texts, now blue bubbles of desperation, were still pouring in, routed through the internet, a digital ghost of the connection I had tried to sever. For the first day, I just watched them pile up on the corner of my screen. It was a fascinating, horrifying study in escalation. It began with annoyance. The service cancellations had hit. From Dad, "Phone's not working. What did you do?" From Mom, "Cassidy, our internet is down. I can't check my email. Did you forget to pay the bill? Call me." From Layla, "My phone just shut off. WTF Cass." Then, when I didn't respond, because I couldn't, not from that number, the annoyance curdled into blame. From Mom, "This is not funny. Cassidy, it's been a whole day. You are being incredibly disrespectful. We are worried sick that you're just ignoring us. You are making your father furious. Call this house." From Dad, "You are playing a very stupid, very expensive game. Girl, whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Turn the phones back on." I sat on Maya's couch, sipping soup, and just read them. They were like messages from another dimension, from a life that was no longer mine. They still hadn't realized I wasn't ignoring them. They thought I was punishing them. They thought this was a negotiation. I scrolled back, just to be sure. Back past the stuck in traffic text, back to the week before. And there it was, the photo, the one Layla had posted, the family day without the drama selfie. I looked at their laughing, carefree faces, then I looked at the new, frantic texts. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. On the third day, the panic began. My laptop, which had been chiming every hour or so, suddenly became a constant stream of notifications. A rapid-fire ding-ding-ding-ding that made Maya look over from her own laptop. "What is that?" she asked. "The old number," I said, my voice quiet. "They've found a new emergency." The texts were no longer sequential. They were a chaotic explosion, a digital scream. From Layla, "Cassidy, you have to call me." From Layla, "It wasn't my fault." From Layla, "He came out of nowhere." From Layla, "Mom is hysterical, answer the phone." From Mom, "Cassidy, Layla was in an accident, a bad one. You need to call us right now." From Dad, "Answer the damn phone. Your sister is in trouble." My heart did a weak, pathetic flutter, the old reflex. Layla is hurt. But I didn't reach for my new phone. I just waited. The rest of the story always followed the money. It did. From Mom, "She's okay. She's not in the hospital, but the car is totaled. The white one, she hit a Lexus, a brand new one, and the man is a lawyer, Cassidy, a lawyer, and he's saying his back is hurt." From Mom, "Our insurance, they're saying they might not cover it all because of the lease, because of what happened last week. They said it's a pattern." From Dad, "They're threatening to sue us, not just for the car, for pain and suffering. This guy is a shark. Cass, we need your help. This is serious." I stared. The car I had just saved, the one I had emptied my licensing exam fund for, she had crashed it. After all that, she had totaled it. I should have felt fury. I felt a cold, gray fog. Of course, she had. This was the pattern. "Are you okay?" Maya asked, her voice soft. "You look, I don't know, not good." "I think," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "I'm about to find out what this is really about." The laptop chimed again. It was a long message, a wall of text. From Mom, it was the confession. "Cassidy, I am just going to... You aren't answering. I am just going to say it. You cannot be mad. You have to understand. We were desperate. You know we've been struggling. That it's been hard. A few months ago, your father, he was looking at losing the house. The payments, it was all too much. The credit cards were maxed, the truck, everything was just piling up. We went to the bank, the local one here in Maple Ridge, Mr. Henderson, not our neighbor, a different one. He's a loan officer. He said our credit it was just shot, completely shot. There was nothing he could do for us. But, he said, if we had a co-signer, a strong one, and we knew you were the only one, your credit, it's perfect. You're responsible. My blood turned to ice. No, they didn't. We were going to ask you, I swear we were, but we knew you'd say no. We knew you'd lecture us, as you do. You'd tell us we were being irresponsible. And this was to save the house. Cassidy, it was an emergency. So, your father, he remembered. He remembered you had emailed him all those files. Years ago, when you were applying for that first scholarship to Midwest, you had to send in all that paperwork, your signature, your social security number, all of it. We still had it, in the old family email account. We saved it. They saved it. So we just used it. We just printed it and scanned it onto the application. It was just a temporary measure. Honey, just to get us through. We co-signed you onto a new loan, a consolidation loan. It paid off all the credit cards. It paid off the truck. It even refinanced the house so we could get a lower payment. It saved us. Cassidy, it saved everything. My hand was over my mouth. I was going to be sick. Right on Maya's clean floor. Cass! Maya was at my side now. What is it? What did they do? I couldn't speak. I just pointed at the screen. She read it, her eyes widening, her hand clamping over her own mouth. The text wasn't finished. But now, because of this accident, it's all falling apart. The bank called, because the insurance is making a fuss, and the man, the lawyer, he's looking into our finances, and the bank, they're getting nervous. The bank is doing an internal audit. And Mr. Henderson, he called. He's panicking. He said he needs you. He needs you, Cassidy, to confirm the signature. He needs to talk to you on the phone, or he needs you to come down to sign a notarized verification. He said if you don't, if he can't get you, he has to flag the loan as non-verified. Cassidy, if you don't do this, they will call the entire loan. They will take the house. They will take the truck. They will take everything. It will be fraud. We will be ruined. We will lose everything. The final text came through as I was reading. This one was from Dad. It was not a plea. It was a command. From Dad. Your mother told you, this is not a joke. This is not a game. You are the only person who can fix this. You are the only one with the credit and the name. You will call Mr. Henderson. You will tell him you signed. You will do whatever he says. We are your family. Do not be selfish. Selfish. The same word. The kill shot. The one that had always worked. I looked at the screen. I looked at the confession of a federal crime. Identity theft. Forgery. Fraud. A loan. A mortgage. In my name. My anger. The cold. Constructive anger from the hospital. Crystallized. It became a diamond. It became hard. And sharp. And clear. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I methodically, calmly, moved my mouse. I took a screenshot of every single message. Layla's panic. Mom's confession. Dad's command. I took a screenshot of the BBQ photo. I opened my email. I started a new message to Blake Foster. attorney at law. Subject: urgent. Follow up to our consultation. Evidence attached. I attached every single file. I wrote one sentence in the body of the email. Mr. Foster, this is what they did. What are my legal options? I hit send. My laptop chimed. It wasn't a text message. It was an email. From Blake Foster. He was, apparently, working on a Sunday. His reply was 3 sentences. Ms. Monroe, do not, under any circumstances, contact these individuals or the bank. What you have sent me is a clear, written confession of felony identity theft and loan fraud. If you refuse to verify this loan, the legal and financial liability falls 100% on them. They are the ones who committed the crime. You are the victim. Call me in the morning. We will file the police report. I read the email. I read it twice. You are the victim. I closed the laptop. I looked at Maya. She was pale. What are you going to do? I thought about my life. I thought about the ruined diorama, the love you text after the hit and run, the 10-hour shifts, the $500 for my health, sent to save a truck, the collapse on the stage. They weren't calling because I had collapsed. They weren't calling because they were worried. They still had no idea. They had never once, in all these frantic, desperate messages, asked me, "Are you okay?" They were calling because the bomb they had strapped to my back, without my knowledge, was finally ticking, and they were demanding I be the one to defuse it. "Cass," Maya said, her voice shaking. They could go to jail for this." I picked up the soup bowl. The soup was cold. I didn't care. "Yes," I said, and I was surprised by how steady my voice was. "Yes, they could." I took a spoonful of the cold soup, and I finally felt my hands stop shaking. The call did not happen from a hospital bed. It happened from Maya's lumpy floral print couch. It was Monday morning. I had spent the last 36 hours in a strange, cocoon-like state. I ate Maya's mother's soup. I slept for 12 straight hours. I had my first video call with Blake Foster, my new lawyer. He was a sharp, surprisingly young man with a background in financial crimes, and he did not mince words. What they did, he'd said, his face clear on my laptop screen, was a Class C felony. You are, in every legal sense, the victim. The power is entirely in your hands. You just have to decide how to use it. Now, he was back on my screen, a small, professional headshot in a video call window. Maya was sitting on the floor next to the couch, a steaming mug of tea in her hands. She was my witness. He was my legal shield. On the coffee table sat my new phone. It felt heavy, like a weapon. "Okay," I said, my voice quiet. "He's on the line. Maya's here. I'm ready." "Just remember," Blake's voice came from the laptop speakers. "Let them talk. Do not agree to anything. Do not promise anything. You are here to gather information and to state your position. That's it. Let me be the bad guy. That's what I'm here for." I nodded. I picked up the phone. I had found my mother's new pay-as-you-go number from a text Layla had sent before her own phone was cut off. I dialed it. My heart was not racing. It was slow, heavy, and cold. A single, heavy beat. Thump, thump, thump. I pressed the speaker button. The small electronic ringtone sounded once, twice. On the third ring, she picked up. "Hello?" Her voice was wary, tight. "Hello, Mom?" I said. The sound on the other end was a convulsion, a strangled gasp, a sob, an explosion of forced, frantic emotion. "Cassidy! Oh my God! Cassidy! Oh, thank God! Thank God! We've been terrified. We've been calling and calling. We thought something terrible had happened. Why would you be silent? Why would you do this to us? You scared me to death." I closed my eyes. Maya winced. Blake Foster's face on the screen remained perfectly, impassively neutral. The first volley, guilt. You scared us. You did this to us. Not a single. "Are you okay?" I let the silence sit. I let her performance hang in the air. echoing in the quiet apartment. "Mom," I said, my voice as calm and steady as a crisis hotline. "I'm recovering. I've been in the hospital." The sobbing cut off instantly. A sharp, audible silence, filled with confusion and the sound of a hand fumbling with the phone. "What?" Her voice was sharp now. The performance gone. What do you mean, a hospital?" "I mean," I said, "that on Saturday, when I was supposed to be graduating, I collapsed, on the stage, in front of everyone. I was taken to the emergency room at Chicago Metro. I was admitted to the cardiac unit." More silence. I could hear her breathing. I could hear my father's voice in the background. "What is it? What's she saying?" She's saying she was in the hospital," my mother whispered, her hand clearly not covering the receiver properly. "The doctors," I continued, my voice mercilessly clear, "called you. They called your number. They called Dad's number. They called Layla's. Repeatedly. They left multiple urgent voicemails. No one answered. Because you were at a barbecue." I heard a sharp intake of breath. It was my father, grabbing the phone. "Now, you listen here," his voice boomed, full of bluster, full of the familiar angry defensiveness. We didn't know. The phones were acting weird. And now is not the time to be dredging up the past. Cassidy, it's not the time to be pointing fingers." "Dad," I said, "it was 2 days ago." "It doesn't matter," he roared. You're fine, aren't you? You're talking. You're fine. But your sister is in real trouble. She's about to be sued. And you're talking about a party? What is wrong with you?" And there it was, the pivot, the classic, desperate, and completely predictable pivot. Maya shook her head, her eyes wide. "So," I said, "tell me about the trouble." "Your mother told you," he shouted. "In the text, the car, the lawyer, the bank." "Yes," my mother's voice cut back in, frantic, high-pitched. "The bank. Cassidy, Mr. Henderson, he's terrified. He's going to lose his job. And us," he said. "He said we have 24 hours. Honey, 24 hours. Or he has to flag the account. He just needs to talk to you. That's all. He just needs you to tell him that you signed, that you approved it. It's just a formality, baby." "It's just a piece of paper. Cass," my father added. You sign it, or you tell him yes on the phone, and this all goes away. It's to save your family. It's to save our home." I let the request hang in the air. Save your family. Save our home. Just a piece of paper. Just a formality. "No," I said. The word was so quiet, I almost thought I hadn't said it, but the silence that followed was absolute. "What?" My father's voice was a low growl. "No," I repeated, louder this time. "I will not be calling Mr. Henderson. I will not be verifying a signature, and I will not be signing any new pieces of paper." The explosion was immediate. "Angra!" my father started, but my mother's shriek cut him off. "What do you mean?" "No. Cassidy, you don't understand. This isn't a choice. This is our house. This is everything. You're the only one. You're the smart one. You're the one with the good credit. You're the strongest one in this family. If you turn your back on us, this family is finished. We are finished. Cassidy, do you hear me?" "I hear you," I said. My voice was dangerously calm. I also heard from my lawyer. Another silence. This one was different. It was cold. "Your what?" my mother whispered. "My lawyer, Mr. Blake Foster. He's on the line with me right now. He's been listening to this entire conversation. He has seen the text messages you sent me. Mom, the ones where you admitted to using a scanned copy of my signature and my social security number to commit felony loan fraud." "Now, you wait just a damn minute," my father roared, his panic finding its only outlet in rage. We did that. We did that to save this family. We did it for you. So you'd have a home to come back to. After everything we've done for you. We fed you. We clothed you. We put a roof over your head for 18 years. And this is how you repay us? You get a lawyer? Like we're criminals? You are, I said. You committed a crime. Against me? You ungrateful, he sputtered, the word finally finding its mark. You ungrateful, selfish girl. You're just like you've always been. Cold. Just cold and wrapped up in your own books. You never cared about this family. Only about yourself. That's not true, Dad, I said, and I heard the list in my own voice, like a roll call of old ghosts. I cared when I took the blame for the hit and run Layla caused in high school. I cared every single time I sent hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, from my paychecks, from my student loans, to pay for your emergencies. I cared 3 days before I collapsed. When I sent you the last $500 I had on earth, the money for my licensing exam, to save a car that Layla had already lied to get, a car that she then crashed, because there are never any consequences. My voice was rising, not in anger, but in a strange, cold clarity. And you want to talk about selfish? I was lying in a cardiac unit. Mom, I collapsed. And you didn't answer the phone. You chose a barbecue. You posted a picture about how happy you were that the drama, wasn't there. The line was dead quiet. I could hear my mother start to cry. But this time, it was the thin, reedy sound of a woman who had been caught. I have spent my entire life as your designated shock absorber, I said, the words coming fast now. Your helper, your rational girl, your human shield, your walking wallet, and I am done. I took a breath. You didn't call me because you were worried about me. You called me because you're about to lose your house, and I'm telling you, right now, I am not going to stop it. Excuse me, Mr. and Mrs. Monroe? The new voice, crisp, professional, and cold, sliced through the tension. Blake Foster. My father, in mid-rant, stopped. Who in the hell is this? My name is Blake Foster, he said, his voice amplified perfectly by the speakerphone. I am legal counsel for Cassidy Monroe. I am advising you, in the strongest possible terms, to stop speaking. You are on a recorded line, and you have, in the last 5 minutes, confessed to multiple felonies, including conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted coercion. Your text messages from yesterday, Mrs. Monroe, are a written confession. My mother stammered. My client, Ms. Monroe, Blake continued, his voice like a sheet of ice, is the victim here. She has zero, and I mean zero, legal liability for the loan you forged in her name. If you, or the bank, or anyone else, attempts to attach her name or her credit to this debt, we will file a countersuit so fast it will make your head spin. I have already drafted the police report and the affidavit for all 3 major credit bureaus. We are locking down her social security number as we speak. A police report? My father's voice was suddenly small. The bluster was gone. It was the sound of a bully who had just been punched in the mouth. That's what happens when you commit identity theft, sir, Blake said. Now, I am advising my client to have no further contact with you. Any attempt to call her, text her, or reach her through a third party, I saw him look at me, and I knew he meant Layla, will be considered harassment and potential witness tampering. Are we clear? The silence stretched. I could hear a car horn in the background in Maple Ridge. And then, I heard my father's last, desperate, pathetic roar of defiance. A police report? He bellowed. You dare? You wouldn't dare do this. Not to your own family. I looked at Maya. She was crying, her hand over her mouth. I looked at Blake's face on the screen. He was waiting. I picked up the phone. I looked at the little red end call button. I I said, my voice quiet, but clearer than it had ever been. And I am. I let him hear the finality in my voice. This time, I said, I'm choosing myself. I pressed the button. The line went dead. My finger hovered over the red end call button for a second. The silence from the other end was a hollow, gaping vacuum. My father's roar of, "You wouldn't dare," was still echoing in the room. Then the script flipped. The rage and bluster, having failed, evaporated. The next voice I heard was my mother's, and it was a sound I had never heard before. It was not the fake, manipulative sobbing. It was the choked, broken sound of genuine, abject terror. "Cassidy," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Please, please, honey, don't do this. A police report? A lawyer? This is your father. This is your mother. We made a mistake. A terrible, terrible mistake. We were so scared. We were drowning. You're right. You're right about everything. But please, don't send your father to. She couldn't even say the word. "It's family," she pleaded, the old, worn-out, powerful mantra. We're still your family. We love you. We've been stupid. We've been wrong. Please, baby, give us one more chance." And then, the final, desperate card. Let me talk to her." I heard Layla's voice, frantic, in the background. The phone fumbled, and suddenly my sister's voice, high and reedy, was in my ear. "Cass! Oh my God! Cass, please, don't listen to him. Don't do this. It was my fault. The car. It was all me. Don't let them hurt Mom and Dad because of me. I'll get a job. I'll pay you back. I swear. I'll pay everyone back. Please, Cass. This is the last chance. Please, just give us one more chance." I listened to it all. I listened to the weeping, the begging, the promises, the sudden convenient acceptance of blame. And I felt nothing. It wasn't that I was cold. It was that I was, for the first time, clear. I was a doctor, looking at a wound that had become septic, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that one more chance was just another word for infection. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry for what was about to happen to them. They weren't begging for my forgiveness. They were begging for my signature. They were begging for me to get back in line, to pick up the shield, to absorb the consequences that were, for the first time in their lives, actually landing on them. I looked at Blake, my lawyer, on the screen. He was impassive. He was leaving the choice to me. I looked at Maya. Her face was a mask of tears, but she was nodding at me, a slow, deep, powerful nod. "You can do this." I took a deep breath. I let it out. "I will not," I said, and my voice was my own. "Be signing any papers. I will not be sending any more money. I will not be calling any banks, and I will not be stopping Mr. Foster from doing his job." I let that sink in. "From this moment on," I said, "every consequence that comes from this belongs to you. You made the choices. You told the lies. You forged the signature. This is your emergency, not mine." My mother's wail was a thin, sharp sound. You're destroying this family. You're tearing us apart." I thought about the hospital room. I thought about the barbecue. I thought about the no drama caption. "The family?" I said. "The family was without drama the day I collapsed. The family chose a party. Instead of the cardiac unit, I'm not destroying anything. Mom, I am simply, finally, leaving a building that I was never really welcome in. A building that was just using me for my parts." I pressed the button. The line went dead. The silence in Maya's apartment was absolute. It was just the sound of my own breathing. steady and even, and the hum of the refrigerator. I set the phone down on the coffee table. My hand, I noted, was perfectly still. My heart was beating, a slow, regular rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. Maya just stared at me, her mouth open, tears streaming down her face. "Cassidy," she whispered, her voice full of a kind of awe. You just did it. You did what so many people, what I dream of doing. You said no." I looked at her, and I started to cry. But these were not the hot, painful tears of exhaustion or grief. They were the strange, clean, relieving tears of an ending. A real, true, definitive ending. Blake's voice came from the laptop, gentle now. "Cassidy, you okay?" I nodded, wiping my face. "Yeah," I whispered. "Yeah, I think I am." "Good," he said, "because your part is over. My part is just beginning." He was true to his word. That afternoon, from Maya's couch, we had a three-way call with the fraud department of the Maple Ridge Bank. I gave my statement. No, I did not sign that loan. No, I did not authorize it. Yes, that is a forgery. We filed the official identity theft report with the police. We sent the affidavits to all 3 credit bureaus. We sent a formal cease and desist letter to my parents' new, temporary address. They were, apparently, staying at a motel. The bank, in its panic to avoid a lawsuit from me, had moved faster than I thought possible. The foreclosure was instant. And then, I sent one last email. To my mother, my father, and to Layla. It was not angry. It was not accusatory. It did not list their crimes. It was just a boundary, a simple, clear statement of fact. As of today, my lawyer has handled all legal and financial matters regarding the fraudulent loan. This is the last time you will hear from me. I am blocking your numbers, your emails, and your social media. I will not be taking your calls. I will not be reading your letters. I am not, and will never again be, your financial or emotional solution. Do not try to contact me. I wish you the best. Goodbye. I hit send, and then I blocked them everywhere. The next few weeks were quiet. My recovery was simple. It was sleeping for 8, 9, sometimes 10 hours, waking up to the sun, not a 4 a.m. alarm, my heart beating calmly, not in terror. It was eating a full meal, a meal I had bought, for me, and tasting it, sitting at Maya's table, or later, back in my own studio, and not thinking about someone else's electric bill while I chewed. It was walking. I was still weak. I took my discharge papers to Northbridge and was immediately, and kindly, put on medical leave. I spent my days walking, slowly, around the lagoon near the hospital. I'd watch the ducks. I'd feel the sun on my face. One afternoon, I found myself back on the campus of Lakeview. It was quiet. The students all gone for the summer. I stood on the quad, looking at the empty patch of grass where the stage had been. It was just grass. The banners were gone. The white chairs were gone. I stood there, on the spot where I had fallen, where that version of me, the one running on fumes and hope, had finally given out. I thought about her, that poor, exhausted, 29-year-old ghost in a wrinkled gown. And I whispered, to her, to myself, to the breeze coming off the lake, I will never, ever abandon you again. The world is full of families who tell you that family is everything. They tell you that blood is thicker than water. They tell you that your only job is to be there, to help, to save them, again and again and again. But what happens when the people who are supposed to be your safety net are the ones holding the anchor? What happens when the people who are supposed to save you are the ones who need to be saved from? If your family calls you tomorrow and asks you, begs you, demands that you save them, one more time, after they have abandoned you, time and time again, what will you do? On the day I collapsed, they chose a barbecue. They chose to celebrate a day without the drama, On the day they collapsed, they chose me as their last resort, as their final lifeboat. And I, for the first, last, and most important time, I chose myself. My answer was no. What will yours be? Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know your thoughts. So please, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Let's talk about this. And if you felt this story, please subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like this video, and hit that hype button so more people can find this and be heard.